I mean, obviously, DeWanna's a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, one of the best that's ever played our game. We were really excited when she decided to come here in the off season. And, as we got into the season, she just expressed that she didn't feel like it was a good fit.
DeWanna Bonner's midseason exit from the Indiana Fever left fans stunned, but now GM Amber Cox has finally broken her silence. And what she said wasn't just a polite goodbye, it was a calculated corporate bombshell that might have quietly ended Bonner's WNBA future. Behind the vague phrases and media-trained statements lies a brutal truth the Fever didn't want you to hear. This wasn't just a player leaving a team, this was a breakdown of trust, management, and everything. The Fever claimed to be building, so what really happened behind closed doors? And what does this mean for Bonner's legacy moving forward?
As we got further along in the process, we explored trade options. And then just, it's pretty early in the season, given the level of DeWanna's contract, we just couldn't find something suitable. So at the end of the day, we respect her status as a veteran in this league. We had the opportunity to bring Ari back around the timing with the 10-day wait period. So we just felt like it was best for all parties to.
DeWanna Bonner wasn't just another off-season pickup. She was supposed to be the veteran presence beside rising star Caitlin Clark, a future Hall of Famer, a seasoned leader, someone who could steady the team during the chaos of a hyper-sure season. That's what Indiana sold fans when they signed her. In fact, GM Amber Cox and head coach Stephanie White both praised Bonner publicly, calling her one of the best to ever play the game. The message was clear. This was a big move with big expectations. So how do you go from that to cutting her after just 9 games? Bonner's time in Indiana didn't end with a farewell video or a thank you post. It ended with a footnote. Literally, her exit was casually mentioned in a social media post about another player's signing. No tribute, no closure, just silence. And for a player with her resume, that kind of exit raises red flags. The team's explanation: Bonner simply didn't feel like it was the right fit. That's corporate speak for something went wrong, and we're not telling you what, because you don't let go of a player like Bonner unless the situation is toxic or mishandled. Maybe both. From day one, the chemistry was off. Bonner missed 2 weeks of play, labeled as personal reasons, but the whispers had already started. She was unhappy, and no one in the organization seemed able to fix it. What makes this even more frustrating is that the Fever needed Bonner. They brought her in for leadership, for playoff experience, for mentorship, and somehow they still couldn't make it work. And if you think the breakup was mutual, just wait until you hear what Amber Cox actually said in her bombshell statement. When GM Amber Cox finally spoke out about DeWanna Bonner's departure, the words sounded polished, but the subtext was ice cold. She told reporters, "We just couldn't get it to a place where it felt good for her." On the surface, that sounds diplomatic. But when you peel back the layers, it's clear. Something went seriously wrong behind the scenes. This wasn't the usual farewell for a respected veteran. There were no heartfelt thanks, no emotional send-off, just a sterile summary of how things didn't click. And that's a red flag, especially when you're talking about a player with Bonner's resume. You don't just move on. From a 4-time All-Star without something breaking internally, Cox's phrasing carefully avoids accountability. She talks about fit and conversations, but never once explains why Bonner was unhappy or what adjustments were or weren't made. It's like watching someone apologize without ever saying sorry. The entire tone of the statement screams damage control. And here's the real kicker. Cox admits they explored trade options early in the season. That means this wasn't a sudden decision. It was a slow-moving train wreck. They saw the problem, couldn't fix it, and quietly looked for a way out. When no team would take Bonner's contract, the Fever cut ties. This isn't just about losing a player. It's about how you lose them. And when a franchise's top executive shrinks behind vague language instead of owning the situation, true motivation for leaving Indiana and how it rocked the entire league. Forget the polite excuses and PR statements. DeWanna Bonner's exit from Indiana wasn't just about fit, coaching, or chemistry. It was about control. Multiple reports reveal that Bonner had already made it known. She didn't want to be picked up by just any team. Her eyes were locked on one destination, Phoenix. Why? because that's where her fiancé, Alyssa Thomas, plays. That's right, Bonner wasn't just walking away from the Fever, she was walking toward the Mercury, and she was willing to blow up her own season to make it happen. Sources close to the situation claim Bonner privately told teams not to claim her off waivers. That's a bold move for any player, but especially for someone in the final stretch of her legendary career. It sends a clear message. This wasn't about minutes or play style. This was personal. She wanted out, and she wanted out on her terms. You can respect the loyalty, you can even admire the strategy. But you also have to ask, was this fair to the Fever? They signed her in good faith, expected her to mentor Clark, and built around her. Leadership. Yet behind the scenes, Bonner may have been planning her exit all along. This power play exposes a growing trend in the WNBA, stars using their leverage to control where they land, even mid-season. And while it worked out for Bonner, she got her wish. It also left a bad taste in the mouths of fans and execs alike, because the second Bonner made it clear she only wanted Phoenix. The Fever's hands were tied, and what happened next showed just how disposable legends can become. You'd think a future Hall of Famer like DeWanna Bonner would get a proper send-off, a thank you post, a highlight reel, a moment of respect. Instead, the Indiana Fever buried her departure in the last line of a social media post about signing. Another player, Ari McDonald, that's not just tone-deaf, that's disrespect on a whole new level. No tribute, no farewell graphic, no press conference. Just a one-sentence afterthought tucked beneath a different announcement. For someone with Bonner's resume to championships, 5 All-Star appearances, over 6,000 career points, that's not how you treat a legend. Fans were outraged, and Bonner herself made it clear she wasn't okay with how it went down. On Instagram, she didn't hold back a quitter. Nah, never been that. But when the time comes, let's make sure the apologies are just as loud as the disrespect. Translation. She felt blindsided and publicly humiliated. This wasn't a quiet retirement. This was an organizational erasure, the kind of exit that tells every other veteran in the league, if it can happen to her. It can happen to anyone, even Caitlin Clark, supposedly the future of the franchise, had called Bonner tremendous and said she brought exactly what the team needed. So, how did the Fever go from praise to indifference in just a few weeks? The answer? Damage control. The Fever wanted to cut ties without admitting failure. But by treating Bonner like a footnote, they triggered a bigger backlash than if they'd just owned the situation. And behind that cold goodbye was a front office scrambling to fix a mistake it never should have made in the first place. Beneath the polished quotes and social media silence, the truth is hard to ignore. Something inside the Indiana Fever organization was broken. When a veteran like DeWanna Bonner walks mid-season, it's not because of one bad practice or a disagreement over minutes, it's because the entire structure around her failed. Let's start with the term that keeps popping up: personal reasons. That phrase has become the WNBA's version of a smoke bomb used to cover up deeper issues that teams don't want to explain. In Bonner's case, personal reasons was just a placeholder for a crumbling relationship between player and organization.gm. Amber Cox admitted they made adjustments to help Bonner feel more comfortable. But here's the thing, if a player of Bonner's caliber is unhappy, you don't try, you solve. You don't fiddle with rotations and hope she figures it out. You listen, you adapt, and you lead. That didn't happen. Instead, the Fever found themselves in a toxic cycle, a legendary player who felt underutilized, and a coaching staff that couldn't or wouldn't shift their system. Bonner is known for playing at a controlled pace, while the Fever were pushing a fast, aggressive tempo. No one adjusted, and the disconnect only grew. It's not just bad chemistry, it's bad management. The Fever knew who they were signing. They knew her playstyle, they knew what she brought to the table. So if it didn't work, that's not a Bonner problem, that's a front office failure. And now, instead of being seen as a team that supports veterans, the Fever looked like an unstable franchise, fumbling to build around a young star. And if you thought that was bad, wait until you see how they tried to fix it, because it only made everything worse. When things started unraveling between DeWanna Bonner and the Indiana Fever, the front office didn't just stand still, they tried to salvage it. GM Amber Cox admitted they explored trade options early in the season. Translation, they knew this relationship was heading toward a crash, and they were desperately looking for an exit ramp. But here's the catch. No one wanted Bonner's contract. She's a future Hall of Famer. Sure, but at age 37, with a hefty price tag and limited fit, in fast-paced systems, teams weren't lining up to make a deal. The Fever were stuck holding a veteran they didn't know how to use and couldn't OFFLO a D. So they did the only thing they could. They cut her. Bonner was waived, ending her run in Indiana, not with a trade, not with a tribute, but with a release. She forfeited a significant chunk of her salary just to get out. And when she finally landed in Phoenix, it was reportedly for the veteran minimum. Let that sink in. A WNBA legend went from top dollar signing to league minimum salary, all because of a front office that couldn't manage the situation from day one. From a business standpoint, the Fever fumbled the bag. They lost a high-profile veteran for nothing. From a human standpoint, they burned a bridge with a respected player who had every intention of contributing. And while Bonner may have lost money in the short term, she gained something else: freedom, control, and the ability to reunite with her partner in a system that actually values her. But this fiasco doesn't just reflect poorly on Indiana. It might be setting a dangerous precedent that could shake the entire league's balance of power. DeWanna Bonner's exit wasn't just a messy breakup, it might be a glimpse into the WNBA's future. For years, league veterans played wherever they were needed, often sacrificing comfort and chemistry for the good of the game. But Bonner flipped. That script, she walked away mid-season, forced her way to her preferred destination, and let the world know she wasn't playing along with the usual front office politics, and the message landed. What's stopping other veteran stars from doing the same? If a player no longer fits a system or simply doesn't want to be there, can they just step away, block trade interest, and demand a soft landing with their team of choice? That's exactly what Bonner did, and now the league has to wrestle with the implications. For smaller market teams like Indiana, this is terrifying. They already struggle to attract big names. If veterans now feel empowered to walk mid-contract with zero consequences, what's left for franchises trying to build long-term rosters? Bonner's decision sends a clear warning. Loyalty is optional, and leverage is everything. It also raises concerns about locker room culture. The Fever brought Bonner in to help lead a young team, but instead of setting the tone, she bailed and left Caitlin Clark, the franchise's rising star, without a steady veteran by her side. The organization took a gamble, and it backfired loudly. The bigger question now isn't just about Bonner, it's about league structure. Is the WNBA prepared for a player empowerment era where stars dictate where and when they play? If so, teams will have to adapt fast or risk falling apart just like the Fever did. And with all this chaos, one thing remains uncertain. What does the future hold for Bonner herself? Now that the dust has settled, all eyes are on DeWanna Bonner, and the question everyone's asking is simple. What now? At 37 years old, Bonner is nearing the end of a storied career. She's a two-time champion, five-time All-Star, and one of the most respected veterans in the league. Her numbers this season weren't flashy, but they were solid. She dropped a season-high 21 points against the Mystics and proved she could still contribute when given the opportunity. So why does it suddenly feel like her future in the WNBA is in limbo? Because in choosing to walk away from the Indiana Fever, Bonner took a huge risk. She burned a bridge, not just with one franchise, but potentially with multiple front offices who watched the drama unfold. She's now seen as the player who pulled the emergency brake mid-season, then handpicked her. Next stop. And while that may be empowering, it's also dangerous because the league is small and reputations spread fast. Bonner's move to Phoenix may give her the reunion she wanted with fiancée Alyssa Thomas, but it comes at a price. She's playing for the veteran minimum now. She gave up financial security and possibly long-term stability to make a point. She won't settle. She won't play somewhere she doesn't belong, and she's not afraid to make noise doing it. But the gamble only pays off if Phoenix welcomes her with open arms and she proves she can still be a difference maker. Otherwise, the narrative shifts from bold veteran move to cautionary tale. If she fades quietly into a supporting role or gets limited minutes, critics will say she overplayed her hand. If she excels and leads the Mercury deep into the postseason, she'll be hailed as the vet who took control of her own story. Right now, Bonner is walking a tightrope between legend and liability. And with the way things ended in Indiana, one thing is certain: every move she makes from here on out will be under a microscope. The question isn't whether she still belongs in the WNBA, the question is whether the WNBA is ready to handle players who won't play by the old rules anymore. DeWanna Bonner's sudden exit from the Indiana Fever wasn't just a roster move, it was a full-blown statement. A Hall of Famer walked away mid-season, publicly snubbed by her own team, and quietly maneuvered her way to Phoenix. Behind the vague press releases and sanitized statements was a deeper truth. The Fever mismanaged a legend, and Bonner took matters into her own hands. GM Amber Cox's bombshell statement didn't provide answers, it exposed flaws. It revealed a franchise that couldn't adapt, couldn't communicate, and couldn't keep a veteran star engaged. And now, the fallout stretches far beyond Indiana. This moment has shaken the WNBA to its core. Player empowerment is rising. Organizational trust is cracking. And stars are no longer waiting around for systems to catch up. They're moving on their own terms. Bonner's story is both a warning and a blueprint. A warning to front offices that think reputations can be buried in footnotes, and a blueprint for players who refuse to be boxed in. The question now isn't just what happens next for Bonner, it's what happens next for the entire league. Because this wasn't just a breakup, it was a wake-up call.